Hi guys, this is a very different video to what I normally do, but basically I wanted to try for myself what's it like vlogging with the Z6 on the variety of lenses that I have. So I really want to try this lens that is currently on, the 24mm f1.8, as well as later on we'll be trying the 14-30 f4, 24-70 kit lens f4 Z mount, 20mm f-mount 1.8, Venus Optics Laowa 12mm f2.8 manual lens, and then we're gonna switch to the Z50 and try it vlogging with the 16-50 native DX Z lens. I'm gonna put the 12mm on the Z50 2.8, the 14-30 as well as the 24. I don't think it's gonna look that great because it's gonna be at 36, but we are going to try it. So the settings that will be same on both cameras is that it's on a Joby Gorilla Pod, like the Pro version, the rather heavy one. Both cameras will have the same microphone, the cheap Movi VRX10. The attenuator will be on, the microphone will be on automatic, frequency will be on voice, and with regards to setting in the camera, every lens that we'll be shooting will be wide open, at the widest that the lens can possibly open. I'll be shooting at 1/50 in 4K 24 frames a second, and I will try to control so that the ISO is always at 100 with an ND that I've got in front. This is the Nikor variable ND Nano X, 1.5 stops to 5 stops. So with that variable ND in front, I'll be controlling so that my ISO always stays at 100. It's not sunny, so even don't have to use 5 stops. With a sunny environment, I would need to use 5 stops to keep it down at 100 to still be at 150 at the wide open aperture. But other than that, the stabilization will be set to sport on the Z6 and on the Z50, well, at least with regards to the native DX lens. We'll have the same settings, a manual white balance, and electronic stabilization will be off on both cameras with every lens, and face tracking with regards to all the fully autofocus lenses will be set to the highest speed and the highest and the lowest tracking speed. Well, 5 on this and 1 on that, which should give me always straight away snappy face tracking focus without any slowing down. I think that's it. Yeah, let's do this. First up, how does it look like vlogging on the 24mm native Nikkor Z F1.8 S? There's an S at the end, which means it's a better lens, I think. Let's try it. So this is test number 1, the 24mm f1.8 lens. I'm vlogging at a hand's distance. I'm holding the Gorilla Pod underneath, and I'm just walking forward and looking into the camera. I'm turning around and then walking backwards. No, I'm not walking backwards. I'm just walking back to the bag where I'm gonna change the lens. And this is the same 24mm lens f1.8 with face tracking on, but with stabilization turned off. So the sensor isn't stabilizing anything at the moment. It should be much shakier, but I will see how it looks like if you actually stabilize it in post with software stabilization rather than the camera doing any stabilization. And electronic stabilization was also off. And just as a matter of test, I won't be testing this on any other lenses, this is the electronic stabilization on as well as the optical stabilization on in sport mode. Does it look any better? It probably looks very similar, but just wanted to see how does it look. And then if you move around, you know, I'm not holding this Gorilla Pod too steadily, but I'm just walking forward and trying to do my best. Test lens number 2, now we're on the 20mm f1.8 again, but this time it's the F-mount lens, the G version, and yeah, basically it should be clicky, but you probably don't hear it in an outdoor environment. When it autofocuses, like it autofocuses on my face, it does a little bit of clicking if it's in a quiet environment. This was shot in the sport mode, electronic stabilization also off. Just out of interest, same lens, 20mm f1.8 f-mount, and instead of sport mode stabilization, this is just stabilization on version. I don't think it's much different. I'm walking the exact same way, holding the camera underneath on the Gorilla Pod, about halfway, so not exactly the most stabilized way, but at least the camera is a bit further. So this is the Laowa 12mm manual lens that I had to manually focus. It's set at F2.8. It's focusing at the distance of my face, but I had to manually focus that. But in the body, I chose to for the Z6 to recognize this lens as a 13mm lens, because there is no option to set it to stabilize at a 12mm focal length. And also, instead of holding the GorillaPod halfway, I'm holding literally it by the ball head, because it's a heavier setup. So I felt like holding it by the gimbal would be a bit unfair, because my hand was shaking and waving all over the place. And with this way, it should be slightly better, but I still feel the weight on my hand of this setup. Test lens number 4, we're on the 14 to 30mm native Z mount lens, which is f4. So I didn't put the ND in front because it looks like at ISO 100, 150th of a second. I don't need to. I'm holding the GorillaPod halfway, so maybe there's a little bit more shake. I'll do the same walk in a moment by holding it at the ball head, because it should be better. Still on the 14th, but instead of holding it halfway on the GorillaPod, I'm holding it literally by the ball head, right under the camera. Ugh, you could say I'm holding it by the balls. No, let's not. Anyway, yeah, it should be slightly better stabilized. The stabilization mode is still set to sport, and yeah, it's face tracking me because it's an autofocus lens native to the Z mount system, so it should be doing a great job. And I really like this lens for multiple other reasons, and maybe a review of this lens coming at some point soon. For a comparison to the 20mm lens, I have set now this 14 to 30 lens at 20mm, but it is f4, so there probably isn't that much of a blurry background behind my face. I'm holding the GorillaPod literally by the ball head right under the camera, so it is slightly better stabilized than just holding it at the end of the GorillaPod. And this is the 14 to 30mm at 24mm. It's at f4, unlike the 24mm at 1.8 that would have much lovelier depth of field behind me and a blurry background. At f4, I'm not expecting too much, and the composition, I believe, is just a little bit too tight. I do like the 20 and below look. Maybe 12 is a bit too much, I'm lately thinking, but 24 I don't think is cutting it. Test lens number 5, this is the native kit lens, the 24 to 70 f4. Just as a comparison, because I just also, as I mentioned earlier, don't think that vlogging on 24mm is enough. I like it wider, but yeah, well, I wanted to see how it looks like, and it's good to throw in this lens as a comparison, because I'm pretty sure quite a lot of people do have this lens, so yeah, it's just good to check. And now we have switched to the Z50, and this is shot on the native 16 to 50mm lens. So this is currently shooting at 16mm at 3.5 aperture, and I've got the screen below me. However, it's not being held by a GorillaPod, I'm just holding it by my hand. That you somewhat can see, but 16mm is 24mm field of view, so it's not the widest. 3.5 probably gives a little bit of depth of field in the background. I don't know, it's usable, definitely. I think this can be used, but it's not the most convenient way of holding the camera. Let's see what the view will change if I put a GorillaPod and the lens and the camera will be slightly further away, probably not much than this or something. And now I don't see myself in the flip down monitor. I'm just holding the camera literally by the end of the Joby GorillaPod. Because the camera is so light, I could feel like I could be vlogging in this way for much longer. My hand doesn't get tired at all. And by holding it as sort of 45-degree angle, that's how I positioned the GorillaPod to the camera can be slightly further away, so the 24mm might just be more usable. Well, this probably is a pointless experiment, because I just put the 24mm f1.8 on the Z50, so it makes a 36mm equivalent, so it's probably just my face. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't use it for vlogging. It's way too tight for holding on a Joby GorillaPod, and I'm even holding on the GorillaPod, so the lens is further away compared to if I was holding the camera on its own with the flip down monitor. Yeah, well, it's a test. And now we're on the 20mm f-mount 1.8 G lens, also in fully focus tracking face mode, but again, it's a 30mm equivalent on the Z50. I just don't think it's a field of view for vlogging. It's slightly wider than the 24mm f1.8, but yeah, it's gonna be shaky because there's no stabilization on this lens, neither there was on the 24mm f1.8, and I'm not turning on the in-body electronic stabilization. And now we're on the 12mm Venus Optics Laowa F2.8 manual lens, where I manually focus the distance that my face should be in focus. There's some background blur, some separation, and it's an equivalent on the Z50 of 18mm. So quite a decent field of view for vlogging, I believe, but there's no stabilization. But then 18mm is wide enough that before there was stabilization, people used to vlog without stabilization. As long as you go wide 16-18mm, it shouldn't be too bad. So yeah, I'm wondering what this is looking like. And the last lens on the Z50 that I'm trying is the 14-30mm F4S, which is the full frame native Z mount lens. There's obviously no stabilization because the sensor isn't stabilized, the lens isn't stabilized, but it is autofocus. It's a native lens to the Z system, so autofocusing definitely will be better, will be adjusting automatically. It is F4, so I don't know what the equivalent of 14 currently, which is about 21mm at f4, does it give any separation behind me? Possibly a little bit, and I will not be testing the 24mm to 70 f4 kit lens on for the Z6, because on this it would give a 36mm look at f4, which yeah, no one will be vlogging and interested in vlogging on that lens. It would be a good lens for other purposes on the Z50, just not for vlogging, so it's not even included in the test on the Z50. And out of all the lenses I tested today, I think this one is the one that I like most. I wonder if you can guess which lens it is? Or you might just hear the clicking. Yes, it's the 20mm f-mount 1.8 lens adapted via the FTZ adapter on the Z6 full frame 20mm look. Yeah, it might be clicky because it's not the native silent motor Z lens, but it does the job. It still face tracks, and in the outdoor environment you can't really hear it. 20mm field of view is something I like. For nighttime, 1.8 will shoot at much lower ISOs. In daytime, if I even have to shoot at 1.8, it provides nice separation of the background. Otherwise, during daytime, I really like shooting on the 14-30 f4. I still need to use an ND in front of it because sometimes f4 is still too much to expose properly without an ND. Otherwise, I use this lens because I really like it, and I'm kind of tired because this setup is heavy, so I'm gonna change hands. I'm kind of really looking forward to eventually getting the 20mm Z mount f1.8 that apparently is scheduled to arrive around 2020. I mean arrive, I've not ordered it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Seeing the performance and the sharpness and how well and obviously silent the 24mm f1.8 is, well, I do think that the same quality will be for the 20mm f1.8. Probably around same price at the moment. This is cheaper than the 24mm Z mount, and just it's slightly wider, being only 20mm. So once the 20mm Z mount gets released, I think this lens will probably be going on eBay, as I'll be getting the other one. And this is it. Thanks a lot for watching the whole test. Hopefully this brought you some information and some value that you was wondering how some of these lenses might work in a vlogging scenario. I absolutely love that the Z6 as well as the Z50 have such a great and brilliant working face tracking feature. It's not like eye tracking in video like some other cameras do, but face tracking seems to be working just fine, and this camera is better than other cameras in, for example, a lot of time-lapse features. So having everything in one package like the Z6 or the Z50 for me is the winner. Yeah, I'm biased because I have two Z6s which I do all my work with, but that's because I chose to buy them because they were the better ones out of other manufacturers and other cameras. I think that's it. Yeah, so please let me know in the comments if you like certain setups for certain field of views. Did you like a certain look better on the Z6 or the Z50? Let me know all this in the comments. I'll try to reply you and explain you any things that I haven't explained in this video. Please give it a like, or if you didn't like it, tap the thumbs down twice. And subscribe if you're interested in videos similar to this, as well as other vlogs and travel videos, time-lapse and architecture-related videos that I most often do. That's it. It's really cold. I'm going home. See you later, guys.